The simplest definition of political crime is violations of law which are motivated by political intent. Crimes against governments consist of attempts to protest, express beliefs about, or alter in some way the existing social structure. Crimes committed by the government consist of criminal violations made by governments themselves or by agents of that government. Political crimes are given more leniency than conventional crime due to the low amounts of convictions, with exceptions in wartime, the frequent use of pardons and amnesties, and the special treatment afforded to certain political criminals such as high-level government officials. In this video, I will be focused on different types of political crimes committed by governments. The majority of environmental violations by U.S. corporations are found in only a few industries: petrochemicals, petroleum, automobiles, and electrical products. These industries are oligopolies, meaning 4 or fewer corporations control 50% or more of their market. These industries share many characteristics. First of all, upper-class executives from the banking and insurance sectors sit on usually more than one board of directors, making these corporations interlocked. Additionally, they sponsor 90% of the nation's network television programs, meaning they can control what is portrayed in the media. Furthermore, they spend the most money to lobby Congress and back political candidates that will allow them to continue to dodge environmental laws. Finally, many have been found guilty of hiring organized criminal syndicates to dispose of toxic waste. Industrial nations generate 400 million tons of toxic waste annually, with 60% coming from the U.S. alone. A shipment of toxic waste leaves the U.S. every 5 minutes, every day of the year. The EPA requires U.S. companies to provide on-site disposal facilities for toxic waste, which can cost upwards of $30 million and could take years to build. However, waste can be dumped in third world nations for a fraction of the cost, sometimes as little as $20 per ton. Companies illegally bribe foreign government officials to accept the waste and illegally bribe their military to use force against protesters. Victims of illegal hazardous waste disposal tend to be the most powerless populations around the world. In any market, companies are motivated to increase their profits, and they may do so by restricting their output and/or raising market prices. Collusion occurs when some firms act in unison to raise the prices they charge customers, to lower the price that they pay to acquire goods or services, or to inhibit competition. Explicit collusion occurs when firms communicate directly, whereas tacit collusion is indirect and occurs when rivals' intentions are inferred from their actions. Either way, collusion benefits the boards of directors of these companies at the expense of their customers and suppliers. Leaders view foreign policies of adversarial states to be a reflection of personal interests of particular individuals in power, rather than shared institutional or national interest among the elites. Assassinations are therefore sometimes used to advance a state's foreign policy. Potential gains may be based on successor policy, such as a successor with less hostile policies, on successor capability, such as a successor who will be a less effective leader, or may not be successor based at all, such as wanting to satisfy emotional needs for revenge. The quality of analysis that policymakers give to decisions about assassinations is significantly lower than that of other major foreign policy issues, as the decisions are made in greater secrecy and by far fewer people. Additionally, by the time the policies of an opposing leader has threatened a state to the point where they are considering assassination, they are likely not going to consider their alternatives fully. The most straightforward and common form of retaliation is to kill someone of value to the original assassinating state. An example of this would be in 1968, when after 31 North Korean agents failed to assassinate South Korean President Park Chung-hee, South Korean military officials recruited 31 agents for the mission of killing North Korean leader Kim Il-sung. Executive Order 12333, issued by President Ronald Reagan in 1981, banned the U.S. government from planning or carrying out assassinations. However, after 9/11, President George W. Bush signed a memorandum that made the CIA an essential component of the war on terror through the issue of kill, capture, or detain orders against members of al-Qaeda. This led to black sites, such as Guantanamo Bay, where various methods of torture against suspected terrorists took place. By 2005, the criticism and possibility of legal liability was enough to make assassinations look like a simpler option, which is where drones come in. By the end of 2010, over 200 airstrikes had taken place. Drone strikes are popular because they are cheap, effective, and can be done from a distance, minimizing harm to U.S. soldiers. But because a war has never officially been declared, victims of these attacks are left without justice because neither the Pakistani or U.S. government acknowledge responsibility for the strikes or for the collateral harm caused to citizens. Genocide is a central feature in domination systems such as conquest, colonialism, and capitalism. An example of genocide through conquest is the enslavement and mass killings of 3 to 5 million native people due to Christopher Columbus and his expedition. An example of genocide through colonization is the Trail of Tears, carried out by the Indian Removal Act. An example of genocide through capitalism is the deportations of Hispanic people and the inhumane conditions they are kept in at the border. State crimes against democracy are defined as concerted actions or inactions by government insiders intended to manipulate democratic processes and undermine popular sovereignty. Many state crimes against democracy are associated with foreign policy, specifically the initiation or continuation of international military conflicts. The most common methods are assassinations, mass deceptions related to foreign policy, and election tampering. However, since World War II, state crimes against democracy have increased in frequency and variation in their methods. Conditions conducive to state crimes against democracy include periods of warfare, heightened international tensions, administrations with pro-war vice presidents, and the Senate closely divided along partisan lines. The garrison state construct postulates that military elites come to dominate society due to their perpetual preparation for war. This is supported by the fact that most state crimes have been related to wars. Therefore, vice presidents and members of the House of Representatives and the Supreme Court are seldom targets of assassination, as their death would have virtually no effect on foreign policy. Presidential assassinations, on the other hand, benefit military interests when the vice president's background or policy positions are more pro-war or pro-military than the president's. And while the Senate is important in regards to foreign policy, no individual senator is that powerful. However, senators have been targeted in 2 rare occasions. Senator RFK was murdered after he denounced the Vietnam War and was announced as the Democratic Party's frontrunner for the 1968 presidential nomination. Then in October 2001, anthrax was sent to Tom Daschle and Patrick Leahy, both Democrats in the Senate. They were targeted because the death of a single senator could shift control of the Senate to the Republicans who were pushing for war. Independent investigations are nearly impossible when investigating officers and commissions usually include or are appointed by the very officials who should be considered prime suspects. In all of U.S. history, government investigations have returned a guilty verdict on political crimes only when the legislative and executive branches had been under the control of different political parties as the suspects. When investigating political crimes, researchers stress the importance of standard procedures for controlling crime scenes, inventorying evidence, interviewing suspects, interpreting evidence, overseeing the investigative process, and reporting findings. They suggest strengthening the role of Congress and the public in national security policymaking. Additionally, it is recommended that revisions be made to the constitutional procedures for declaring, fighting, and ending wars, as most state crimes are war-related.